Today we're going to be talking about the top 6 categories of laxative herbs, and I'll be sharing with you from each of those categories my favorite herbs for constipation. Hey folks, my name is Todd Mansfield. I am a clinical herbalist here in Byron Bay, and today we're going to be talking about constipation. I see a lot of constipation in the clinic. Turns up in different ways for different reasons. We'll save all that for another video. Let's keep this one short and sweet. Different categories of laxative herbs for constipation, my favorite herbs for them. Let's get into it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps me share the information. First category, stimulating laxatives. I'm always trying to get patients off of stimulating laxatives as quick as possible. Doesn't mean I don't use them. There is benefit to breaking that constipation cycle, getting that momentum, getting the foundations in to retrain the body to have a healthy bowel movement. The mother of all stimulating laxatives is senna. I never use senna. I don't have it in my dispensary. I don't recommend using senna. The next level down, those anthraquinone glycoside stimulating laxatives, would be aloe vera and cascara. I do have those in the dispensary. Again, I don't use them frequently. When I have to, I don't have a problem with it. And again, my goal is to transition them down onto more moderate stimulating laxatives as quickly as possible. That brings me to my favorite stimulating laxative. It's called Turkey rhubarb. It's a moderate laxative. It's also a really effective prokinetic, so it can work on motility. I use a decent amount. So moving on to the second category, we've got the secretory laxatives. And what these do is they work on the liver, the gallbladder, and the small bowel, that little triad that needs to be kind of synchronized properly. And the top 2 that I use here would be dandelion root or burdock, or both, depending on the needs. And you might think, look, with fat malabsorption, fat would just be running straight through the gut. Patients would present with diarrhea, not constipation, right? That's totally reasonable. Happens all the time. It's a classic cause, root cause of diarrhea. We're talking about constipation right now. Don't get fooled. There can be poor bile flow leading to constipation, and that's because bile can be a little bit of a laxative. You really need that kind of Goldilocks amount. Everything needs to be in a perfect balance for digestion to work optimally, which is what we're going for. So my favorite one here, I use it all the time. I use dandelion root, and this is where we can bring herbal medicines into our daily ritual by making something like a roast dandelion root tea. It makes a really great coffee alternative. It's not stimulating, it's actually very cooling, opposed to coffee, which is very heating. Some people don't sleep well, they get a lot of anxiety, but they love that bitter. We don't have a lot of bitter in our diet in the Western world. And dandelion root, great way to bring it in. Burdock root, super effective as well. Moving on to less of those stimulating herbs, stimulating laxatives, secretory laxatives. We're kind of being a little bit pushy with that approach. Still, there's value there. Sometimes we have to be a bit pushy to get results up front. Always bringing those foundations in. And for me, the foundations are either bulking laxatives and or prebiotic herbs. So initially we'll talk about bulking laxatives. These are generally insoluble fibers, and they help to give a little bit more form and more bulk to the bowel movement. So if the reason for your constipation, don't forget, we're going to be talking about root causes of constipation in another video. It's very actionable data. That's where we choose what kind of set of constipation herbs we're going to use, what categories. But bulking laxatives are really that fundamental piece. You can get a lot of that insoluble fiber from your diet if you tolerate fiber. And a lot of people with digestive symptoms have cut back on the fiber because they find that it flares their symptoms. So we have to go low and slow here. We have to make sure that more fiber isn't triggering or causing or contributing to constipation. That's the tough bit. There's a line to walk. But the big ones that I like to use there are flaxseed, it's my favorite, or psyllium husk. Pretty widely available. You can get it from most Whole Foods or health food shops. So I say start with flax seeds, 1 to 3 tablespoons a day. You can even consume that soaked water as well. Psyllium husk, that can backfire. You have to be extremely well hydrated. A little moment there, hang on, take a little sip. But if you are hydrated, psyllium husk can be effective. Moving on to the prebiotic fibers, these are generally soluble fibers as opposed to insoluble fibers like the psyllium husk or the flaxseed. I mean, there's still soluble fibers in there, but a prebiotic soluble fiber is generally going to dissolve almost completely in water. My favorite one here for constipation would be partially hydrolyzed guar gum, PHGG. Love it. Use it all the time. Almost everyone with a digestive health issue, a symptom when they come to the clinic, is going to get a recommendation of PHGG. Starting low, going slow, building up, feeding those beneficials. Because remember, the majority of the dry weight of your stool is bacteria. We're slowly starting to bulk that out. And there's this whole complex ecosystem where beneficial bugs, feeding them with things like the prebiotics like PHGG, are going to produce all these amazing byproducts, things like butyrate. So much benefit to the gut. I mean, there's a whole video on that, talk about that for hours. Don't get me started. So prebiotics can be very, very effective. Most patients, I start off with low FODMAP prebiotics. If we need it, lactulose, which is like a semi-synthetic disaccharide. It is a FODMAP-y kind of prebiotic, so there can be some reactions, gas, bloating, abdominal pain, low and slow. I'll bring lactulose in on the tail end of a gut treatment for constipation, just to keep things going in the right direction. Another category of constipation herbs that I use would be Demulcent Herbs. And these are very soothing, gelatinous, gel-forming herbs. The one that I'd recommend for most patients, and that's kind of a little bit of a compromise, would be slippery elm. And that's only because slippery elm is widely available. It's really not the most sustainable herb. I do prefer something like marshmallow root, but it can be pretty hard to find marshmallow root. Most brands, supplement companies, they will have their specific gut healing, soothing powder, and the majority of those will have something like slippery elm, maybe some glutamine, maybe some zinc carnosine in it. So you should be able to find slippery elm. The last category of constipation herbs that I use frequently, all the time for constipation, would be Carminative Herbs. And these really help the body deal with that gas buildup and that abdominal pain, the slow transit, the kind of smooth muscle contractions. Most of them are spasmolytics as well, so one herb can almost be like a formula in itself. It can do so many different things, kind of balancing the gut, bringing it back into homeostasis. Carminative herbs, they're pretty easy to kind of list. It's most of those kind of like aromatic, spicy herbs. So my top favorite, talked about it before, use it all the time. Most patients will get it. Ginger. So just to list a few other kind of top herbs, I mean, ginger's number one right there. Would be something like peppermint, fantastic. Cinnamon, absolutely fantastic. Anise, caraway, oregano, clove. And again, here's where we're saying, look, what's going on for you? Is it an infection? Is it an overgrowth that's causing the constipation? If it's something like methane SIBO, which I talk about all the time, super passionate about this subject, we might mix in something like clove or thyme or oregano, definitely ginger, along with other herbs, put together this perfect little formula and see if we can get that momentum, break the vicious cycle of the constipation, build up those foundations with things like soluble and insoluble fibers, and then coast. See if we can get you off of those stimulating laxatives, those secretory laxatives, down to herbs that you can maintain in your daily life as part of your self-care practice to keep the digestion balanced. So I hope you liked the video. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me what you liked. Tell me what you want to hear about. And I look forward to seeing you in a different video.